All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Gray Area. My name is Rob Engel. Super excited to be here today with Paul, Jack, and Will Harold, founders of ION Festival. ION is a new festival taking place this year on the Albanian Riviera in the idyllic village of Dhërmi on the coast of the Ionian Sea. It's going to feature more than 50 different house and techno artists. Paul, Will, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited to chat.
So I think a really important part of ION's story is kind of your story. You guys are the owners and founders of Junction 2 Festival, which is one of the premier music festivals in the UK. So would love to start off if you guys could just talk a little bit about what led you to founding ION and kind of what's going to be different from some of the other events that you work with.
Yeah, I mean, we've been promoters for probably longer than we care to talk about, and it's
like 25 years.
So we put on a lot of parties along the way, and we started Junction 2, which is turned into really one of the UK and Europe's kind of like to think sort of premier techno festivals. ION was really born from that. We had a site visit, and from that, it just kind of got the creative juices flowing of what we would do and how we would interpret something like Junction 2 in that kind of setting. And so there's a very direct link between Junction 2 and ION, but that's not to say that they're the same thing. And we were always really clear about that. Junction 2 is a festival. Its name comes because it's underneath Junction 2 of the M4 motorway or freeway, and so that is a sort of an event that's intrinsically linked to that space, and creatively its identity is stitched into it. Really wanted to do the same thing with ION. Is that the site is absolutely beautiful, as you say. It's on the Albania Riviera. Dhërmi is a really small town. We're able to completely take over that town, have all of the accommodation, and create a festival-like experience. But rather than that going on for a day or 2 days or 3 days every weekend, it's a whole week. It blends really incredible experiences in terms of the site and festival kind of experiences along with the holiday. So for us, taking the musical integrity and what we do with Junction 2, and then interpreting that into how would I stretch this out over a week? How would I use that? I think one of the key points is the stages, the areas that we're able to utilize for this. So there's an incredible canyon, which is a beach with steep cliffs on either side of it that runs back into the land. You can only arrive there by boat. So that'll be one of the stages. There'll be a party there for between 500-600 people on a few days over the festival. There's a stage called the Bunker, which is this incredible kind of concrete dungeon. It kind of evokes like.
Well, it's effectively a car park underneath the hotel.
Yeah.
But it's they've never used it, and so it's as raw as it can be. It's the foundation pillars for the hotel above it.
Yeah.
Dug into the actual rocks and cliff face of the beach. So it falls in line really with, as Will touched on, our shows are very much based on the aesthetic of the location, and both Junction 2 and ION followed a very similar journey in that we had plans to do shows abroad or a techno festival, but they were only going to come to fruition when we found the right location. And ION has that by including these kind of unique spaces. And one of the key points for us, was to create a festival that was enclosed, because I think a lot of these events where you go to abroad, they generally share a town or a location with other activities, other holiday makers, other party goers, and so it has a certain disconnected feel.
Yeah, so it dilutes it in many ways when you're mixing with a bunch of other people who aren't on the same journey in the same headspace as you. And I think keeping that like enclosed, as Paul said, is really important.
Yeah, the same person you were dancing with at 4 o'clock in the morning on the beach watching, getting ready for the sunrise, is the same people you're going to be sitting in a cafe with or having dinner or whatever. So the by having what is in essence fairly limited capacity, it means you're across paths with people all the time, and should be bonding across that week where faces should be very familiar by the end of it.
Yeah, I think that community is a really strong part of both Junction 2 and what we're creating with ION, and it's a sense of like-minded people sharing music they love in incredible surroundings, and it is a lot at the heart of what we do across all of our events. Yeah, I feel like we've probably answered about 6 questions in one there.
Yeah, you guys have. I have so many follow-ups to that, but I think I would love to just hear a little bit about, I'm curious how you came across this town of Dhërmi, and like, what was the kind of initial, how did you kind of initially find that town and settle on that for the location of ION?
I mean, a production partner of ours had been involved in some other events, and they look at this kind of travel space, and he just said, look, I've got something really special. I think something like Junction 2 could really work here. Do you want to come and look at it? So we flew out there and spent a few days kind of taking in all the different areas. And as we touched on, there's the canyon, there's the carpet space, which we're calling the bunker. There's a former submarine base that's kind of in James Bond style, is a tunnel that runs through through this kind of rocky outcrop, which was where they used to hide submarines. So there's a submarine base that we're using as one of the stages. There's another space called the deck, which kind of looks out over the sea. I mean, it's hard to describe it all. I think checking out the website and some images is well worthwhile to sort of see what we're talking about.
Yeah, and they're fairly. I mean, it's probably worth saying. I mean, it's to say that the floors, the cells, the dance spaces are quite. What's the word? Cozy. Intimate is a good way to describe it. Yeah, they're 500 to 1,000 people. So I think the biggest one is maybe 1,500 people.
Yeah,
and I think in essence you got that feeling of escapism, but actually something quite intimate, and quite personal about the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that whether you're in a submarine base or on the roof of a kind of, I don't know, hundreds of years old fort, the kind of thing that's like a UNESCO heritage site, it's sharing incredible music that you'd normally see on a huge festival lineup for thousands and thousands of people in an intimate space.
Yeah, I mean, and who wouldn't want to hear nosebleed techno in a submarine base? I mean, it's a guaranteed show. It's great. I mean, we just walked in and went, this is going to be pretty mind blowing. Really,
I think that's important. Is that a lot of time you go to festivals and they spend a lot of money on creating this kind of underground feeling space, whereas actually what we're doing here is taking different spaces, whether it's a beautiful beach or a kind of somewhere in a submarine base underground, and then we're programming it with sort of music that really suits the environment that you're in. And I think that marriage is always been really important for us. And when sitting down with the booking team, when you stretch that out over 7 days and nights with all these kind of different feeling spaces, we were really conscious of the journey and of people across the week. And like, it's not just to go in and party hard all thing. There's moments and peaks and troughs, and there's yoga and wellness and bits of educational stuff. There's kind of trips and excursions, whether that's like paddle boarding or hiking in the mountains or whatever else you want to do. Plus this backdrop of it's got amazing scenery, and sort of taking people on that journey and bringing people together and using the right music in the right spaces. It means that people have a week there, they have time to see the artists in different environments. One of the things that is a kind of cornerstone of what we're doing as well is that because it's in Albania, for many people it's a long journey to get there. So we've asked a lot of the artists to stay, and rather than the kind of the international artists zooming in, playing for a few hours and zooming off again, a lot of them are staying for 2, 3, 4 days. We're playing multiple sets, so you might see, I don't know, Ben UFO playing a jungle set, or then playing a sort of chill out set on a beach, and the same for, I don't know, Craig Richards or whoever else. So the idea that you'll get a more time and a space to allow these things to unfold. We don't have to condense 50 artists into a weekend and everyone's playing an hour set. You've got time to let people play for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, or play multiple times. Those same artists are going to mingle and interact with the crowd they're with as well. So everyone in essence is there for a collective experience, or to the backdrop of
a beautiful beach, beautiful sea, and 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 degrees Celsius, really, in September. I mean, it's quite a quite a collection of plus points, really.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds like my kind of weather. And I think one of the things I'd love to ask you, because you just mentioned this is kind of Ion's third birthday, but kind of the first time actually taking place. So with the couple years delay of this first festival, could you talk a little bit about how you're thinking of the evolution of the festival, even in those just few years, and how that kind of relates to that community aspect that you just talked about, and people finally coming back together again?
I mean, it's been here in the UK. We've been back to events really since around the New Year period. So we've done a few shows now, and I think bringing people back together has been really powerful. I think we've all missed that kind of collective release of being on the dance floor together. It's a really important part of what we do. I think that it will be exciting to finally get ION underway. There's been a certain amount of stopping and starting and reshuffling that's been hard to manage, but I think that just will make it more exciting when we finally come together and make it happen.
It's a brand that feels strangely familiar with never happening.
Yeah, totally.
We've had a few. We've used the name a few times on a few kind of ancillary events, I guess, just to build profile and just kind of meaning behind the name, I guess, and connection. But it's a show that's had design reiterated 3 times, had imagery recreated 3 times. It essentially on its 3rd round of being sold out. It sold out in year 1, then we stopped it. Then some people refunded, then it sold out again, then it refunded. Now it's heading for sellout again. It is the most bizarre kind of cycle we've run through the show, but it does show that even without it happening, the level of interest in it and excitement of it is quite significant. So it does say to us the story, the narrative, and the concept, and what we put together conceptually is continually very well received. And something that I think, we have ticket buyers who bought 3 years ago, who are still the original ticket buyers and transferred over. And it shows people are genuinely committed to coming to this.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, like Paul said, the sense of community is part of that. And how that will develop, I think we'll probably...
I probably could have learned Albanian by the time this show happens.
I think we'll want to get this first edition finally complete, and what happens next will evolve from that. I think we'll learn so much from it, and it's a journey for us too. So kind of just gathering that information and seeing what works and what can be improved upon is all part of being a promoter. You're very rarely completely happy with every event you do, and you want to continue to improve it and tweak things and shuffle it around.
Yeah, it's difficult fine-tuning something we've never done.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, it seems like you guys have done a good job of that so far. And I think I would love to kind of, you've talked about a lot about the different stages that are going to be present at ION, kind of how they're kind of set in natural settings. They're really going to drive that sense of community. But what I'd like to do now, Paul and Will, is actually just walk through those 6 stages. And if you could kind of paint a picture for me of what's going to take place there, some maybe the premiere experiences or shows that are going to happen during the festival, and then kind of what people can expect if they're in that location. So we'd love to start with the main stage, which you kind of described as this beautiful open air haven, it's safe harbor, where you can kind of keep dancing until the sun comes up. What can people expect at the main stage at ION this year?
An incredible sea view. We're just finishing some of the designs, but we expect that the sort of the DJ booth and stage will be set out on the beach, and there's a kind of a cove, essentially like a mini amphitheatre, if you like, with steps up. But so you'll be raised up one way with the DJ in front of you, and then looking back towards the sea. We're surrounded by a couple of really beautiful hotels that are sort of 4 and 5 star with great bar service and that kind of thing. So it's really the epicenter of the site and the community. I think it'll be the space where in the day we'll probably do things like yoga and that sort of thing down there and play around with that. But it's where you'll see consistently some of the headline artists. It's the biggest stage. probably with the exception of the bunker. Yeah, so it's where you'll see some of the bigger artists through the.
Yeah, and visually, it's definitely going to be the one where you will experience the sun setting and sun rising more than any other location on site.
Yeah, it's got a certain kind of certain Ibis and Balearic feel to it. I think. Yeah. I think main stage.
Awesome. And I'm really excited to talk about the bunker, which, you've already mentioned is kind of this labyrinthine, kind of maze-like concrete structure. Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, yeah, we've spoken a bit about it, but it's got a really dark industrial. There's no natural light in there. It's pitch black. We're going to use it in quite a special way, and I don't want to give too much away. Whereas all of the other stages will be open throughout the event. The bunkers is really only going to be used once, and that is a kind of a big coming together of everybody on site. As I mentioned, it's probably got the largest capacity across the whole festival. So without giving too much away about how because we've really looked at the program, I think, of music across the whole week, and we talked about community. So yeah, I don't want to say too much more because I think I'll give it away. But there's a certain kind of coming together crescendo, which is how we're going to use that space.
Yeah, I think in the use of one of Will's favourite words, it's definitely the juxtaposition of Junction 2 and Ion. It's where the two will meet the closest in identity and visuals, really. The kind of the strong identity of Junction 2 and the motorway and the industrial nature of it. This is where that will be represented in a very surprising location.
Yeah, totally.
Fantastic. And the next location I want to talk about is the deck, which kind of seems a little bit to me, at least from what I've been seeing, kind of the polar opposite of the bunker. You describe it as kind of the spot for lazy days. So could you talk a little bit about what festival goers will experience at that location?
It's a stage that's literally built kind of hanging over the water. It's sort of, there's a rocky outcrop, and we've built a big flat wooden deck out there. There's a nice bar that's raised up on the hill above it, and so it's somewhere we're going to mix things up musically on there. Again, it's the kind of some of the times where there might be speakers or yoga in the day. It's right on the seafront. It's not that far from the main stage, but it's about, I would say it's about 800 to 1,000 capacity in total.
It's definitely, alongside the main stage, the deck is probably the second biggest one for regular events.
Yeah, it's right in the heart of the village, Dhërmi.
Yeah, and I think outside where the main stage is completely open air, the deck is partially covered as well. Yeah. So you can definitely hide from the sun a little bit there as well.
I think we got one of our plans with that in terms of contrast to the main stage is the main stage will feel a bit more festival like. And the deck, I think we want to try and make it feel a bit more club-like, that speaks to the way we'll install sound and the way we'll install lighting and rigging around that stage. So it's I think that's the kind of the intent with the experience there.
Awesome. And next is the Cove, which is described as kind of an intimate sandy paradise on the water's edge. What is the Cove going to be like?
It's a mini version of main stage. It's probably a good way to
I think, but a really mini version. It's the kind of place that if you're on a holiday in Ibiza and you found a tiny little beach with a little bar serving it, it's that, it's really intimate.
I think stairs running from down on the rocky side, kind of leading into it.
I mean, it's the kind of place you'd feel quite happy dancing with 20 or 30 other people, and you'd probably at a maximum get 200 or 300 people on there. It's a really small space. It's a really beautiful place to hang out in the day. I think that in my mind, it's the kind of place that if you've had a late night the night before, you might grab some breakfast or lunch and roll down and have a little dip in the sea. Some more laid back stuff during the day, and just hang out there for a little bit. It's one of the beaches that we'll use for music.
Yeah, and then if you look at night, imagine the cliff kind of being projected on video visuals, festoon lighting leading you down the little steps to it. It's intimate, but quite unique.
And also unique is the next location, which is the yacht club, which sounds like it's a little bit set apart from some of the other locations, if I'm not mistaken. So talk a little bit about
it's one end of the village, probably nearer some of the accommodation, but it's at one end of the village. It's a really unusual space. It's basically like the hull of a boat, a hull of a yacht, sticking out up off the cliff sort of face again over the sea. So there's a couple of little decks around it. You can kind of step down and actually get into the water from there. Again, it's the kind of place.
It's 270 degrees of sea, isn't it?
Yeah.
The back end is how you walk onto it. And then 3/4 of it is water around you.
Yeah, it's a pretty unusual space. I mean, if I was going to compare it to somewhere, it's hard because my reference points are in the UK, but for me, it's a sort of village underground kind of size, feel, you know what I mean, in terms of stage, and that's a small club here in London.
It's maybe a glamorous jetty is probably the way to describe it.
It is. It's a bit more. Whereas all the other spaces are kind of completely embedded in nature, this one's sort of set just up above it, and it's the kind of it's got It's not going to be VIP in that kind of sense in terms of restricted access, but it's just a little bit higher than everything else. It's sort of set apart from everything else a tiny bit, and it'll be a really comfortable environment, and I think you'll be able to create a really cool atmosphere. And I think for me, that's
just as easy to dance it is to kind of sit there with a drink and a cocktail. To be honest.
Exactly, and I think that some of the sunset moments on there will be really nice, and I think that's one of the times that I'd head over there.
And last but not least is the canyon. So tell us how that kind of helps round out the festival.
So the canyon we're only going to use a few times. There'll be daytime parties. As I think I mentioned to you as we chatted earlier, it's around 500 capacity. It's in a deep gorge or canyon. You can only arrive there by boat. There's no road or path. You can't get there any other way. So you're basically on a desert, sort of feeling of a sort of desert island or beach. There's a little bar. There's
the journey getting to it as much as part of the experience.
Exactly.
You don't really know where you're going. They'll get on a boat. They'll zoom along on a speedboat round the coastline to what is a hidden beach.
Yeah.
And you can't even see it from the beach when you land. You can just see sand and hidden. You head further into the tree line. There's a real strong sense of discovery about it and adventure.
Yeah, it's crystal clear blue waters and somewhere really magical. I think just a disclaimer, not everyone's going to arrive by speedboat. You want to make sure we're being honest with everyone. But yeah, so there'll be there's boats for about 200 people, and they'll take you around. It takes about an hour to get there by boat, but it's an outing for the day. It's a really great experience, and something I think will be a highlight of a lot of people's time.
I think the gorge has been owned by the same family for years upon years. This is really kind of one of the first occasions they've allowed people to use it.
And I think one of the things that I would love to ask you guys is a little bit about the logistics to kind of give people a sense of what it's going to be like being there. So obviously the canyon is a little bit, further set apart, and that and the bunker are going to be used for their own individual parties. But for the rest of the festival, do you expect the other 4 stages to kind of be used consistently? Are there going to be different parties going on at different times? And are those all going to be within walking distance, driving distance from each other?
Absolutely. So the village of Dhërmi itself is pretty small. It's maybe a couple of 100 meters in length in total. And then one of the things that's really beautiful about it is the partnership that we've struck up with the local community and the mayor there. And so we're able to essentially have wristbanded access at the village entrance. You can walk everywhere. There's for some of the bits of accommodation, there's free shuttle buses to get you to any of the places for the slightly further.
I mean, they effectively closed the village for us.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're able to create this kind of authentic festival experience. Everything you can reach by on foot, and all, like you said, the cove, the deck, the main stage, and the yacht club will be open. Sort of different programs, but all week and
throughout the week, but late starting. We do kind of believe the idea of running through the night to the morning. You do want that kind of feeling of allowing people to catch up, rest, and then kind of slowly get back into it. Because as much as this is about partying in unique locations, it is very much also the idea of a holiday. And it is about kind of being able to rest. It is about being able to chill out and see people and eat nice food. And then you've got the late afternoon, evening entertainment.
I think balance is a really important thing.
There is one thing during the day, I think.
And each day it starts gradually and builds up through the night each day. So, and I think that having that sense of balance is important. And I think that I think you probably wouldn't be enjoyable by day 5, 6, or 7 if you'd been going 100 miles an hour since you landed. And I think that's the thing, is there's so much to see and do there as well, that I think that rave culture has always been interested in exploring, and that's something that we want to build into this. We want to encourage people to go and explore where they are, and as much as being on the dance floor is an important part of it, there's a lot of other things to do and see. So people should take advantage of that while they're there.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be my next question. What are some of the other activities? You mentioned yoga, you mentioned just kind of, going to some of the restaurants in the local town. Could you talk a little bit about any of the other experiences people could experience?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I mean, there's plenty in the local area. We are partnering with a number of partners down there to offer kayaking, swimming, boat trips, paddleboarding, scuba diving, mountain biking. So there's an a lot there to do. We do kind of suggest people they can rent a car, they can visit local areas. There is a lot for people to be able to do in a relatively close area, I think.
Yeah, and I think that like I said, it's a holiday, so all the usual things that you would expect from there, we try to make sure that are there, and it's really one of Albania's like premier destinations in terms of for kind of Albanians and people in the surrounding countries. It's one of the premier locations to go to, so it's well set up for all that kind of stuff. It's just slightly off the beaten track for those of us in the electronic music world.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a little bit earlier, one of the things is that I think is really interesting about ION is the DJs and kind of the artists that you're booking are going to be at the festival for the length of the time. They're going to be able to interact with the festival goers a little bit more often than they would in other environments. So could you talk a little bit about the types of artists that you've booked for ION and how that kind of relates to the overall vibe of the festival that you're curating?
I mean, because we've got the time and space in terms of lineup, it means that we're kind of taking on the breadth of electronic music. We worked with a lot of different partners in terms of stage hosts to bring a little flavour of what they do, and they're people like smaller events like Crank Brother and Half Baked in London and Picnic and those kind of guys. We've got a lot of love for what they do, so they're bringing a little flavour of some of their parties and whether it's their residents and headliners and that kind of thing. So I think that we're taking everything from the opportunity for dub and reggae, which we wouldn't normally have within the Junction 2 festival, because there's just not space for it in that kind of more intense traditional daytime weekend festival. So everything from dub and reggae right through to the hard and heavy techno side of things, and everything in between it. It's been great to chat to different artists that have got real musical range and to give them an opportunity to express themselves in that kind of way. Like if you're
actively encourages probably.
Yeah, totally. And I think that if you're an actor, I don't know, plays techno as your sort of main thing, but you have a love for dub or jazz or anything else like that, having an opportunity to go and play a set on a beach where it's not important for people to dance and just to flex through your collection of records that you wouldn't normally get is probably pretty exciting. And I think for us, taking the artists and DJs on a journey with us is as important as it is the customers as well. So it's like I said, it's about community, it's about coming together, and ultimately what underpins all of this is a shared love of music and electronic music. So I kind of we've definitely focused on artists that have got real breadth, musicality, and range, and that want to come and be part of something special.
Great. And one of the last questions I want to ask you, you've painted a really nice picture of kind of Ion, what people can expect, and I would encourage anybody who's listening to this interview to go ahead and check out the website, check out some of the pictures. Really beautiful location. But in a nutshell, one of the last questions that I want to ask is if you could, use 3 words to describe the vibe at Ion this year, or what you're hoping the vibe will be. What would those be and why?
For me, it's really easy. And when we wrote our sort of message about, or our kind of plan and our vision for Ion, we did exactly that. And it was dance, explore, connect. And it's really simple, like dance and enjoy yourself, explore an incredible set of surroundings, and connect with music and other human beings at the festival. And if you do those 3 things, you're gonna have a pretty good time.
Fantastic. And one logistical question. I'm correct in saying that Ion is in fact sold out this year, correct?
Not quite. There's it has sold out for the previous 2 editions, which haven't happened. And as we've moved and rescheduled, there's a handful of tickets that still remain for where we've had refunds and people can't make this year's edition. So there's a small number of tickets left, but we are very close to selling out now.
Okay, fantastic. And for anybody interested in those tickets, where can they go?
I mean, if you look at our website for Ion, which is ionalbania.com.
Right, fantastic. Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us on Gray Area this morning. This has been a super enlightening conversation. It's getting me personally ready for summer. So I want to thank you guys for your time and appreciate you painting this beautiful picture that you have, and continuing to, as our mission is, unite the electronic music community.
Thanks, Rob. It's been great to chat to you. And fingers crossed we'll connect or dance in Albania together.